You are now listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord!
Great Scott! Get away!
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joined today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello again.
And on this episode, we're talking about the horror comedy documentary style movie, What We Do in the Shadows. And we'll also be talking about Derek and Sean had a chance to see Wonder Woman, the new film that's in theaters now. So we'll talk some about that. But before we talk about those, we'll briefly go through some news. And I know before we talked about the M. Night Shyamalan produced comeback of Tales from the Crypt and how TNT wanted to have like a block of horror TV that had the Tales from the Crypt as like the headliner, but according to all the executives now, that show is dead because of rights issues, and that's just dead and gone, and they're going to replace it with a block of TV that's produced or has Ridley Scott's involvement that'll be sci-fi instead of horror. So the Tales from the Crypt is now dead and gone for a while.
Do you think there's any possibility that it could be heading to like HBO or something, you know? Could TNT just be like, okay, well, let's just pretend it's dead, but maybe there's some deals going on behind the doors with...
Until they do a promo saying that it's dead and they kill it on camera.
Well, they never did a promo. They did some like videos, that, like sizzle reel stuff and like a short, but they never
filmed it at Sizzler.
No.
They had some really good steaks.
You remember when George W. used to do his Sizzler shit?
No.
You don't remember that one with Saturday Night Live with Will Ferrell, and he was like at the Sizzler, and he's like, yeah, I did this.
Okay.
That's what I want to see.
But yeah, so the Tales from the Crypt is dead. It is not coming back, and
Back in the Crypt.
yeah, which too, like, I mean, to most people who are fans of the HBO series, if you brought back Tales from the Crypt, but you didn't have the Crypt Keeper as voiced by John Kassir, to a lot of people, you don't have the show.
Yeah, what's the point?
So they could have done a version of the Crypt Keeper that looked like the one from the EC comics, and they could have still even had John Kassir voice it. It just would have looked different.
They would make him use a different accent, though.
But apparently the rights issues with HBO and all the international broadcasting and video broadcasting, and because I've listened to some different interviews of people that run some of the like DVD or Blu-ray studios, and it's crazy the amount of rights issues they run into, like with TV shows, because they had the rights to use a song on a TV show in the 90s when it wasn't anticipated to ever be available on the home video, and then they can't get the clearance for the song later. And then if the mixing, if the tracks, the audio tracks for those like shows or movies or whatever have the song baked in, you can't really take it out and fix it. But if you have the separate audio tracks, you can just replace it with a knockoff song or something, which is, I guess, better than nothing.
Or they just get somebody to ADR the whole thing. Whole new voices in.
Yeah.
And new sound effects and new music.
Yeah, so Tales from the Crypt is dead. We will not be seeing that. I mean, I don't know how excited we really were about it to begin with. I mean, like M. Night Shyamalan with The Visit and Split and the stuff he has coming up, seems like he's on a bit of a roll. But those are in films that aren't necessarily straight horror. That, you know, they have horror elements to them.
Very much genre.
And we reviewed them on this podcast. But it wasn't like he was doing... And two, the approach they talked about being like an anthology series. Like, it needed to be a true anthology series with every episode being a different story. If it was one story over the course of a season that would change each season, like American Horror Story, I think that's overdone.
Yeah, and two, it's like, you don't have the Crypt Keeper, and you're changing the format of the show, like... Why call it Tales from the Crypt?
Well, I think too, like I think he eventually had said it'd be more like the original show with like different episodes and stuff like that. But
like, yeah, that original pitch, it was like, okay, this sounds nothing like Tales from the Crypt.
Sounds like American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Can we just get the Jim Henson Studios to produce it with, you know, like Count Chocula and
so like a Sesame Street version?
Yeah,
of,
but I want Count Chocula and
one.
Man,
two.
we need the
No,
we need the
Count the Count.
Chocula, yeah.
Count
we need the
cereal.
General Mills horror universe movies.
yes, I would much rather.
Here comes Frankenberry.
I would way rather see those in the dark universe.
Blueberry.
But I like it. But if you kill children by like overfeeding them a cereal and they just explode, something ridiculous, you know.
Those commercials are pretty good. I posted. Was it this past Halloween when I posted a bunch of the commercials?
Yeah.
From that, yeah, I posted a few of those Halloween cereal commercials that were really good from like the. Even there was some from like the 70s.
Some of them was
Maybe
McDonald's stuff too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I posted all kinds, but I just did some of the
Because I
cereals,
remember some of those things from McDonald's, like the glow in the dark buckets.
I
we still
love
got
those.
some of the buckets at our parents' house, and like the little like he had like what was the blue dude or the purple Grimace?
Grimace.
We have like a pumpkin Grimace and a couple of different. things.
I like for some reason that was like one of my earliest memories of Halloween is like getting those buckets and like loving getting those buckets.
Well, I remember,
from McDonald's.
I feel like kids miss
I remember
out.
having the little toys that were chicken nuggets that had like vampire
Yeah,
teeth.
no,
Yes,
that's what it was.
yeah.
It wasn't chicken nugget. It was
They had those on the commercial. Actually, I think one of the ones I posted.
Yeah.
So I remember a lot of that stuff. So yeah, like, but it like I said, so they're gonna have a sci-fi block instead of horror. That's gonna be Ridley Scott's involved. Which, if it was 3 years ago, I'd been a lot more excited than after Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one movie though. You know what I mean? Like, it's one movie. It's kind of everybody has their misfires. Like, look at John Carpenter's career, and he's
He's had a lot.
And I know you would probably rather him be at his early era, but it's everybody has their hits. I think.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what comes out of that, if anything. It's just, it looks like it wasn't that they got cold feet about horror on TV. They just got mired in the rights issues, and the CEO of TNT or their head guy said something to the effect of they didn't want to wait around for 4 years to get it straightened out. They just want to move on and do something.
Yeah,
Which
and
makes
it's
sense.
probably like they're probably going to spend so much money up front before even rolling into production on getting the rights and all that. Like, why not just get Ridley Scott and then start your own. That's just your own series. You don't have to pay for rights. You own all of it. You don't have to worry about any baggage that comes with it. Like,
I mean,
honestly, from a financial standpoint, that's way smarter than trying to bring back Tales from the Crypt and deal with all that baggage.
But to kind of like what William says, like if you go off of, would you rather have M. Night Shyamalan attached to the project? Right, I'm talking right now, not career based.
No,
just right now, would you rather have M. Night Shyamalan or would you rather have Ridley Scott?
I mean, I would rather a Tales from the Crypt and Night Shyamalan with
And
the Crypt Keeper. Like, I absolutely want that way more, but that's not saying this can't be good. I mean, especially if Ridley Scott's just producing or whatever. Like,
well, and two,
they're just throwing him money.
M. Night Shyamalan has more familiarity with TV recently because he was involved with that show on Fox that was what was it called? The one that was kind of like Twin Peaks inspired.
Speaking of Fox,
Wayward Pines.
This is throwing something out there we didn't talk about. There's a new show coming out called Ghosted, I think, and it's got Adam Scott and Craig
Robinson.
Craig Robinson.
Yeah, it's kind of like an X-Files.
That looks really, really.
I watched
wanna
that
see
trailer. I was like, I don't know.
So it's going to be on Fox, so it's probably like a broad comedy, but I really like Craig Robinson and Adam
I love
Scott.
both of them.
So they're funny, so hopefully it's overall like an enjoyable show.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll at least watch the pilot just because of them. I just want to bring that up real fast.
Yeah, I like both of them a lot too, but let me know how that is.
But yeah,
it could be good, but I was just like, this isn't as, I don't know. It seemed a little bit more broader than I was kind of hoping for.
So some other brief news. So I don't know if we talked about it before, but there's been news about how Universal's wanting to make like a dark universe of interconnected cinematic films that have different characters. So you have the
50
Mummy,
Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
and 50 Shades Darker. It's like the whole.
you have the Tom Cruise Mummy film coming out this summer,
which I actually am excited for.
And in that movie, there's Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll. And,
spoilers.
Well, I mean, it's in the trailers, and it's
spoilers.
And then they're gonna have Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. I think Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. And there was rumors
Bride of Frankenstein.
There was rumors that it would be Angelina Jolie be the Bride of Frankenstein. Was what they said, unconfirmed. So you have the idea they're going to have this internet-connected universe of monster films.
Like the Ogden, the internet,
the interconnected.
Okay.
I want to do a recasting. I think Johnny Depp should be Bride of Frankenstein. That's how he could bring back his creative side, and he could still be really
and it's going to be
interesting.
It'll be directed by Tim Burton.
Like
Dr. Frankenstein is Helena Bonham Carter.
Like just have him be Edward Scissorhands, but the Bride of Frankenstein.
Why don't they just bring Scissorhands into the dark universe?
That would be cool.
Yeah, it's probably because the rights issue.
You could do,
just make it up, dude.
Just do Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands,
you know how much money,
Pee Wee Herman.
You know how much money that would make if they brought Beetlejuice and
Michael Keaton's Batman. Just all the Tim Burton versions.
If you had Michael Keaton as Batman today fighting against Edward Scissorhands.
No, it's the Justice League, but with all of them.
I would watch that. I would love to see that.
But
they make a Saturday morning cartoon version of
I want Christopher Walken to return as the Headless Horseman.
So I think too that there's legal issues because like the Dark Universe or whatever is also a term that's been used by DC for their version of the Justice League that would have like Swamp Thing and different and John Constantine and stuff like that. So there's all that, but then the interesting
it's like
part
not
of
even
it,
like that stellar of a name. Like, why don't they just pick another one? But the Mummy trailer this weekend I saw said like the first chapter or your introduction to the Dark Universe or something. So they're already putting that out there.
But you know, the Mummy, real quick, is something that I've seen trailers for. Like the closer it gets, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually going to look.
well, it's one of those things where it's going to be an event film. It's not going to be as goofy or campy as the Brendan Fraser ones from the early 2000s or late 90s.
Don't talk shit about.
But those
movies,
movies,
I love that
those movies were very much in the vein of trying to be an Indiana Jones-esque
The first
adventure.
two were good. If now the
Well,
third
the first one I think was the best. The second one leaned far more into the special effects and the goofiness of it, and then there's like the third one and.
But I watched the crap out of
And
that
the Scorpion
VHS
King.
in like '99 when it came out.
And the
or
Scorpion
whatever.
King has some of the worst CGI
Hey,
ever.
I took a day off of school. to
or
go see
the Scorpion King in the second one. But like, so then you
like
have
10.
so you have all these monster movies that are coming out, which like the one I've always thought would be like primed for a remake, which supposedly was going to happen with John Carpenter years back, or like all these different people, is Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Is one of them called Gill Man?
Is that the Creature?
I feel
from
like
the
I
Black
heard
Lagoon?
that, which would be the creature, but I don't know if there's a weird rights thing. I have no idea.
I just know that there was times that they had talked about doing remakes, and like John Carpenter was attached for a while, and it just never happened. And because it's one of those things where I think you could make that movie look better now. But the real news out of that came out recently is that Jason Blum could be involved, and they could be making some lower budget horror films out of that universe, which is I think is very interesting. I would much rather see those like one-off kind of monster movies they make for, under $10 million versus some like Johnny Depp CGI bullshit fighting against Tom Cruise type stuff. But yeah, so that was the actual interesting part. But
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it. And it's cool they're kind of handing off some lower budget ones. Just because they're lower budget doesn't mean they're going to be inferior.
I like
they
lower
could be,
budget,
they could be
smaller scale,
way more
stories.
interesting.
Yeah.
You never know.
Especially too if they can give newer directors or people with fresher looks, give them a chance at it, and you might, hit some gold or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what comes out of that. I think that was all the kind of main news for the past week. Because we're recording this podcast on Saturday, June 3rd, the last one we recorded on Tuesday, so not a lot of time has passed.
Yeah,
we're 3 days
so we haven't had
removed,
time
so.
to.
Like, I mean, for the camera nerds, like, there's been a bunch of camera announcements that we're excited about with, like, a new Canon and Panasonic camera that could possibly be something we'll have at some point to work on some
So
upcoming
just
projects.
go ahead and
but-
donate that money to the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yeah, hit the donate now.
And we're not
or,
using it to record podcasts.
or Patreon or whatever. So, yeah. But, yeah, so that was all the news in terms of the way I've been watching. Like, I didn't really have a chance to watch anything, but I know. So, Derek and Sean got a chance to watch Wonder Woman. I did not. I will be seeing it with Julie, I think, tomorrow or sometime early next week. We went to see it, just didn't have a chance to yesterday. So, Wonder Woman. So, this summer, in terms of the big budget tentpole films, I mean, granted, the term summer has been stretched to where it's meaningless now.
But this is June, so I'm throwing it in.
But you had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which Sean and I saw, and, enjoyed it. Good movie. It's not like the best movie of all time, but thought it was enjoyable. Alien Covenant, I know me and Derek were much lower on it than Sean, but still nobody thought it was like a hit or knock out of the park.
I got 2 words for that movie.
So there was that. Then was it that King Arthur flopped?
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Baywatch flopped.
It didn't. Yeah, I mean, it
made
did
far
as
less
well
than
as-
expectations.
It did as well as Alien Covenant, so it's not like it flopped.
So far you've had a lot. You've had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You've had some smaller movies, and you've had a lot of big budget stuff that's flopped hard.
Yeah.
And then you got Wonder Woman, which is the first on-screen, big budget, big push, big summer release, high expectation superhero film. You've had stuff before like Elektra and Catwoman and things like that.
This is the first one done right.
But this is the first one where there's been a palpable amount of hype going into it and people excited about it and good reviews for it and all that stuff and expectations that it's going to open to a good box office and be a success. And those other films like Elektra, that was a spinoff of Daredevil, which in and of itself was not a huge box office hit and was not critically loved.
Yeah.
It was.
But you loved it because you watched it. William
I didn't
watched
love it.
No, he watched it all the time. So, Yeah, he
Wake Me Up
liked it.
Inside.
Do you like Jennifer Gardner or do you like Elektra?
You like Ben Affleck? What are you talking about?
So that movie came out when I was in high school. The aesthetic was like something that was like I didn't think it was a good movie. I just watched it.
Yeah, I remember we got it on Best Buy or something for like really cheap, and you watched the crap out of it.
Well, then I think too our dad watched it a bunch.
Yeah, but he also watches Armageddon like 30 times in a row.
Or Under Siege 2.
Yeah, Under Siege 2. Yeah.
But yeah, so like those movies
Same
were
movie.
Yeah.
So like Daredevil,
no, he'd argue
so like
that.
Daredevil wasn't a good movie, and didn't make a ton of money. It was just okay enough, not enough to make a sequel. They made that Elektra spinoff. It flopped because it wasn't good. Catwoman, it only had Catwoman. It didn't have Batman, and it didn't have any of the stuff people wanted. And it wasn't tying into anything else.
Wasn't that essentially done because like Halle Berry wanted a Storm spinoff and she did not get it, and then they offered her Catwoman and she took it?
That would make sense.
And I think because that was around the X-Men time, and I know there's always been rumors of a Storm spinoff. It never happened. They gave her that because in the early 2000s, Halle Berry was one of the hottest actresses. Like
She won an Oscar?
not like metaphorically. I'm saying like
she won an
was just
Oscar. She was in big budget successes.
Yeah, she was just a good actress. Plus, she was really attractive, so that helps too. And
But then she was in Swordfish and Catwoman.
and that kind of petered out a little bit. But I think that was one of the main reasons why she took that film. It was just and it was not good. It was a very, very bad movie. It's on AMC, or used to be on AMC like all the time.
Yeah. So not good movies, but this Wonder Woman movie, the buzz has been good. So what did you all think without any big spoilers on it?
Yeah, I want to know what you think first, Sean.
I thought it was good. I liked it quite a bit. I was hoping it was going to be good. Like, I was hoping it was going to be good from when I saw Batman versus Superman, because she was like one of my favorite parts of that.
By far one of the best
like
parts.
my favorite thing about that is like she like Batman is like one of the coolest superheroes ever. You know what I mean? But like she made Batman look like Aquaman. Like like she saves Batman, and then like when Bruce Wayne is in there like putting that tracker on, like she's like one step above him. Like she just seems smarter. She's stronger. She's just like. She was awesome in that, and I think like the theme music and everything, like I was really excited for this.
Yeah, I like her own individual theme music. I think it works pretty well.
I think it's like my favorite theme music of all of the superhero
Because without big spoilers for Batman v Superman, but it's in the trailer. It's in I think almost every trailer they released.
I don't think there's any way you can spoil that movie anymore because
there's a scene where a character is about to destroy Batman, and then like he doesn't get destroyed, and there's Wonder Woman. She saves him, and then it plays like her theme music. And it was like a cool moment because like it's one of the few times they've revealed a character that way.
Yeah, because she was not in the outfit at all. And actually, when I was watching that movie, I totally forgot that Wonder Woman was even in it.
Yeah,
because I was like not super. I knew the movie was not
like
supposed to be
3 hours
good.
long, so it's easy
I
to
knew it wasn't
forget.
supposed to be good. Like I went into that movie thinking, okay, I'm ready to be like bored out of my mind or whatever. And I went down to see it by myself. I didn't even take my wife because I was like, this is supposed to be really bad. And I actually quite enjoyed it based on my expectations of it. But like, yeah, even when she like shows up just in a dress and meets Bruce Wayne, I didn't know that was Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Like that's what was so cool about it to me, is because I just didn't realize. And then when I did, I was like, holy shit, and then she comes in like the perfect moment. Like, I think that was like the best handled moment of that film.
That and the Batman fight scene toward the end, I really liked. But
Martha.
No, not that.
Martha.
But this is one of those movies, and I'm trying to think how I can say this the right way. But
No spoilers for Wonder Woman,
yeah,
but
this
there will
was
be
spoilers.
spoilers for What We Do in the Shadows.
But like you look at a movie and you have a bunch of douchebag white guys out there that hate the premise of a female-directed movie that has a female lead in it. And then you have on the other spectrum, you're going to have people that are just going to praise that movie for what it is because of that, regardless if it's good or bad or not. But this is actually a solidly good movie all the way through. If you take out that stuff, it's still a good film.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's nice that it has added benefit that's led by a female, directed by a female, but that doesn't define this movie.
It does. It defines it in that, it's not like the whole. It doesn't define it on the whole, but it adds so many great little moments and kind of things that a male director may not put in. Just like whenever, they talk about like a foreign director coming in or maybe an American director directing a film that is like set in a foreign land with a foreign cast, they may not add some nuances to some of the things because they don't have that perspective.
And they could get the cultural aspects wrong.
Yeah, so
granted.
like you have these moments in this where there's just some great moments of role reversal on typically who's the hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
in all
feels,
these films.
But it feels organic.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like, when I came
it doesn't feel like they're praising, like beating something.
Yeah, I'm not getting beat over the head with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I really liked about this, because like Get Out kind of is a little bit like this too, where like, people I think maybe have been afraid to critique it a little bit, but you go watch that movie and it's a solid movie all the way through. It's the only movie I think I've ever gave a perfect score to.
Well, I think that if you go and look at Get Out, at least for a while, the only negative review on Rotten Tomatoes was from Armand White, who is a renowned critic for being the only negative review in a lot of loved movies.
Yeah.
And he is African American, so like and he was talking about the movie was racist.
Well,
and he has a contrarian viewpoint in almost every movie. He was talking about how this one podcast he was on before I heard, he was talking about how Inception was a far inferior film to Transformers 2, and about how Transformers 2 is about like existentialism and all this stuff, and about like consumer culture. And I was like, what movies did you watch?
you added
But
a lot of
Transformers 2 is just like a bunch of shit banging together and Shia LaBeouf and Optimus Prime heaven or something. But so like, yeah, like I really wanted to see Wonder Woman. I just didn't have a chance to see it. But like the thing that I think, like, so was it fun? Was that
Oh
the
yeah,
thing?
it was. Here's the thing, like this, and this is what we were.
It wasn't a dour, sour.
No, this was
somber affair.
This was everything that Suicide Squad tried to be and failed miserably at. Like, Suicide Squad is the skid mark on the nastiest diaper you've ever seen in your life that's been sitting out in the sun for 5 years and had dead animals on top of it. It's garbage. This is like what the DC universe has probably tried to make and has failed to make for how long have they been doing this now? When was the first crappy Superman release? Like 4 years ago?
So Man of Steel was like 2012 or 13.
Yeah, so 5 years ago. So it's taken them 5 years to finally get something right. Suicide Squad made a lot of money, but it was critically panned and it was not good. This is, to me, it's like, if Fox can keep up what they're doing with Deadpool and Logan and those smaller scale, better stories, and the DC universe can put stuff out like this, then my appeal to the MCU is gone.
Well, I think it's just that you have like the Marvel stuff is more of the broad-based, broad appeal, fun, like blockbuster movies. Let me finish. And so you have them providing that level of entertainment. Like all those movies are kind of fun. They're kind of upbeat. They have stuff going on. They have darker elements, but still they're blockbuster entertainment. You can eat popcorn while you're watching.
Yeah.
DC had tried to go like pitch black darker than the Nolan movies.
Yeah.
And it made them money, but Batman v Superman made less than Captain America Civil War, made less than like the Fast and the Furious movies worldwide. So it was successful to a point, but a lot of people trashed it, got bad reviews, and all that.
Yeah.
So then they had Suicide Squad, which was like I still need to watch. It's on HBO now, so I'm gonna watch it sometime. It's still so long. I don't want to waste the time, but so like a tonal mismatch that a lot of people didn't like. And then you have with the Justice League trailers, it looks like they're trying to make them more fun and trying to make it a little bit lighter. But it seems like, from what you're saying, like this movie, it actually is fun, and it's not.
And I think something that helps a lot, and I'm gonna compare this to Captain America: The First Avenger. That movie to me is like in this kind of like Inglourious Basterds, like alternate history. It's a little bit different. Whereas this one still, there is some more alternate stuff in this, but still feels more grounded. Like it feels more like it's set in a truer landscape or truer world than what was in Captain America.
Yeah.
And I think the story, Gal Gadot, I probably just killed her name, but like I loved her as Wonder Woman. Like, I
mean, she's part of the reason I was going to see it.
Like,
also,
her character is like. I don't want to spoil it, but she's very charming. Her character's like very wide-eyed and bushy-tailed for a lot of the movie. And
somebody said it's like
fish
kind
out of water.
It's a coming of age tale too, because it's her being exposed to not only just the world, but like men, humanity, like all this stuff. So it does a lot in the runtime.
And there is a large gap between like story and action, but the story is so fun and there's a lot of enjoyable stuff. And I think having I like that they had Chris Pine in there, but he wasn't the focus. He was never the focus, which I think was nice. And I just look at this movie and it's like, if DC can continue to put stuff out like that, then I'll be very happy with it. And it's interesting.
It's all going to be director by director. You know what I mean? Like like, even though I know you're saying like kind of done with the Marvel films. Like, I'm interested in Thor based on who the director is.
I'm interested,
You know, like
but-
depending on who they get for each film. Like, I actually, as you know, like I don't really care about superhero stuff that much. I care about the individual films, so I can go either way. But we may get Wonder Woman 2 may suck. You know what I mean?
You're
Like
right.
you don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's how it goes.
You know, it just depends on the talent they get behind the camera and who they have in front of the camera too.
But one thing I like, and this is something that I can compare to Thor. Like if Thor 1 was done like Wonder Woman was, because it's kind of the same. Like,
Yeah, exactly,
gods,
yeah.
it would have been such a better movie.
Well, the
but
first
they
Thor-
made- it sucked. It
The
was
first
crap.
Thor was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who had done some Shakespearean adaptations. He directed the upcoming Murder on the Orient Express. He was the villain in Wild Wild West. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Like he has an idea what he's doing, but that was made in 2011, if I remember correctly. Like early on in this type of stuff, and it looked like Power Rangers kind of in terms of the
It was
goofiness.
very goofy. Yeah.
And so the new film looks like it's a lot more fun, and the new Thor that's coming up. But so Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman in 2003, she made Monster, which got won some awards, and it had Charlize Theron
Academy
in
Award.
it, and Christina Ricci, and if I remember correctly,
Yeah, it's
Christina Ricci and Charlize Theron. So it made money, won awards, and got her prestige. After that, she stuck to TV for a while. So she directed an episode of Arrested Development, 2 episodes of Entourage, which is unfortunate for her. But she
I used to love that
William
show.
used to love that.
Yeah.
come on, why do I bring everything
Entourage,
up?
because it is.
But then I soured on it because it was the same bro bullshit.
Yeah, but William's like Michael Scott.
She directed
Entourage.
episodes of The Killing and other stuff, and then came back to Wonder Woman. So they have, somebody that is, I think the funny thing is, like, out of the Marvel universe, the directors that are kind of doing the best are the Russo brothers, who did like Captain America Civil War, Winter Soldier, and they're going to do the new Justice League, the new Avengers movies, and they came from TV too, having directed episodes of Community, and I think being involved in Arrested Development some. So you have TV directors who are like doing movies, and but I think because they have a good idea of how to handle multiple plot lines and characters and levity. And it's not somebody like Zack Snyder where it's like slow-mo, fast-mo, slow-mo,
Well,
kill,
there was
bah.
a lot of slow-mo scenes.
Which is fine,
Yeah,
I
but it
think.
worked
Yeah.
in the context that it was. But one thing I want to get on, and it's not a soapbox, but one thing I enjoy that DC, to me, has already, they've took a market from Marvel that they've not tried to go after. They've went after the female audience.
Well, like Marvel has announced stuff, but nothing's been
no,
filmed.
but Marvel has been making movies for 10 years since Iron Man. It's almost
2008.
a decade, and they've yet to make any truly strong, interesting lead characters that you would actually want to watch a movie about. That's a woman, because Black Widow,
You
Black
could make a good
Widow's-
movie out of that.
You could, but they're not going.
But
They've had
the
more than
typical
enough
Marvel format wouldn't fit for a Black Widow
if you
film.
made a
you
Black
need
Widow
something-
film and you got Paul Greengrass who directed like the Bourne movies,
or
and
like
let him make
or
like a
like
spy
Logan, you know what I
thriller.
mean? You need something more grounded for her.
and in like Scarlet Witch, because those are the only 2 main female characters they have that are actually.
Well, then like you
heroes.
have like Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy, but she's part of like an ensemble cast.
Yeah, and I'm saying like that they've been around so long.
They've had the
now.
opportunity,
They've
but
had the
they've-
opportunity, and they've left the door.
The only thing I would say, in like not defending them, just like Wonder Woman is an iconic character that people are aware of outside of comic fandom.
So Marvel
so it's
is a-
easier to
sorry, is a
launch
huge
that
character.
So I think
Yeah.
that's another reason it's a big moment is that Wonder Woman is a character that people are aware of outside of just superhero films. A lot of the Marvel characters you don't really know about aside from seeing those movies or reading comics.
but that is true
Because they had the Linda Carter show in the 70s, which could have theoretically hurt the movie because it was kind of like a goofier, campier show. Because like I think I posted something from the Incredible Hulk show, like a GIF from it, where he threw a bear into the
everybody
river.
loves that, though.
So like those shows from the 70s are kind of campy
that's
and
what they
stuff.
were in
but
the
it put those characters in the general consciousness, and
Yeah.
people are aware of Wonder Woman, even if they know is wearing like spangled underwear and spinning in a circle.
Yeah, but as much as I didn't like Suicide Squad, and I don't care for the interpretation Margot Robbie did of Harley Quinn, that is a massive success on their end. That's one of the
sold
most
a lot of
popular
Halloween
characters.
costumes.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, if DC, to me, it looks like they've already picked up the female market. They got your Harley Quinn, they got your Wonder Woman, they also have Catwoman, they have Poison Ivy, they have a lot more iconic.
They haven't been introduced yet in this current iteration.
But those are massive characters that people care about and that they are very popular. Whereas Marvel could have done that, but it's funny because I think with their female characters, that lends more to the X-Men universe. Because I'm trying to think of bigger characters. And like right now with the X-Men, they have Storm, which a lot of people
all
like
the
with-
villains in the Marvel films have all been men, haven't they?
Yes, they've all been men, and they've all died. So I guess the biggest knock I have on Wonder Woman And this is not. I didn't care for the big bad per se. I don't want to get into that, but
I've heard some people say. I've heard a couple people say like, okay, now that everybody loves it, it's great. Let's talk next week about how bad the third act is. I didn't think the third act was bad.
The third act was not bad.
Yeah, I didn't think it was.
The person they picked to be the big bad was a miss to me.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine, but maybe I was going in expecting like the third act to be not great.
Well, that's like most superhero films have villain problems in terms of not having
DC. It's like aside from Batman and maybe Superman, like I don't know who a lot of the DC.
Batman's villains are far more interesting than everyone else in that universe.
But it's like the other villains.
Most of those villains go up like if Bane goes up against Superman, it's over in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think that's why Superman is. That's why those movies are always be hard to make because he's so overpowered that the only way I think
you have to unpower him or give like ridiculous powers to a villain,
or you have to almost make him the villain, kind of like they did in Batman vs Superman.
That's apparently what they did in
like
those.
They attempted
those new
Injustice.
The new one. Like Batman's the villain, and he's like a huge dick. And they said it's awesome. Like the story, and that's actually really good.
Yeah.
But like back to Wonder Woman, I feel like a lot of superhero films are kind of a response to other superhero films, or like even just that Batman versus Superman. Like they were just trying to be an anti-Marvel film and stuff like that. I feel like this film of all is just trying to be a good film on its own. Like I feel like this could have been made in the 80s, 90s, whenever.
It's good.
Aside from the effects, like she just crafted Patty Jenkins. I don't know who the screenwriter was, but obviously the director is always heavily involved in the flow of the film and all that. Like it's just a well-paced film. Like a lot of times we talk about films with pacing problems or whatever. Yeah, there's story action. And it's not only good on a pacing level as far as entertainment, like thematically. I feel like things get rolled out very well. Like it hits on some really good thematic beats. Like every so often, it's like story, theme, and action. Like it just has a really good rhythm to the entire film, and things just keep rolling, and they never get too long. You never have too long of an action sequence or too long of a story, but it doesn't feel like artificial where they thought, okay, we've had 15 minutes of story, we have to show an action set piece. Like it all feels very natural, and it just all flows.
Yeah, it feels
really
very
well.
earned to me.
Yes,
everything in the film was earned. And that's where I go and look at this, and this is why I think one reason why I enjoyed this and I enjoyed Logan so much is because this film works in a vacuum. You don't. You do not need to watch anything else. You do not need to know anything about Wonder Woman's character. You can just go watch this film and really enjoy it. They didn't over-sexualize her character, which was nice. They didn't give her like a little skimpy outfit, and there's so much I liked about this film.
You're saying it wasn't shot like a Michael Bay film?
No, they didn't Megan Fox.
But they also touch on like I guess woman's sexuality like in the early 1900s. You know what I mean? Like basically she can't go around in her Wonder Woman outfit.
Yeah.
Because
but that was
too
like,
much. Like that's awesome. Like they touch on those little things here and there. It's not a big deal.
Well,
but
it might be too much in some parts of modern day America.
Yeah, but it's like part of the reality then too. And it's like, oh no, you have to. I mean, granted, she's wearing the Wonder Woman outfit, which looks weird anyway.
Yeah.
Even if she's walking around nowadays, except for a Comic-Con or something. But
one thing I did like too is like, they didn't make Chris Pine's character like his mind didn't get exploded that she was a badass. He was just like, oh, okay, and just went along with it. There wasn't like, you can't do this because you're a woman. So I liked that aspect.
So one thing, like, granted, I feel like all the characters were handled really well. But one thing I would have almost liked out of this, Chris Pine character, he's about what you see in the trailer. You know what I mean? Yeah. I almost would have liked if somehow instead of him being another guy you would like you would have been fine if he was a lead in the movie. You know what I mean? Like he's a well-meaning character, flawed or whatever, but he is also like a hero. He's somebody doing the right thing for the right reason. I would have almost liked to have her have a foil when it was a guy that is basically like would never admit to Wonder Woman saving him and all this other stuff and like stay back woman.
Well, I think that would go well with like so.
And the story works great for Chris Pine. But I would have liked to seen some of those moments just because they would have been so great. Like tackle that head on.
Have it be like so. To go to a reference we've made a few times, Scary Movie 2, David Cross's character is in a wheelchair, never wants anyone to help him do anything. So Chris Pine's like being shot at by a bunch of like soldiers, and he's in like a bunker and he can't escape.
His legs are like eaten up with bullets, and he's like crawling away. He's like, "Don't help me, I've got it, woman."
And then so that'd be funny. So I guess before we move into what we do in the shadows, so if you had to give a score out of 10, what score would you give it?
For me, like honestly, it does have the super added benefit of it being like it feels fresh because it's a female hero.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? That it already has that. But aside from that, even if there'd been a bunch, it would have been a really solid film.
Yeah.
It's not like mind blowing. This isn't Mad Max Fury Road or something like that where it's just, but from that standpoint, but from a story standpoint, it is handled so well, I think. Like, it, you know, I couldn't see you getting a better character introduction. Like, as far as, you know, we've had a lot of Batman films, Superman films and stuff like that. This being the first like Wonder Woman film that I know of, unless they did like a Linda Carter TV version, like, you know, a real
I think
huge
they probably did
honest
some
effort.
TV movies, but those don't count.
But like, I can't really see it. You know, this is up there with like Spider-Man 1 as far as being the first honest approach at something and being handled so well, I think. And Tim Burton's Batman too was great. You know what I mean? And a lot of people like, oh, Superman, like those are all great. But I'm saying like in the modern era of this time, like it's going to be interesting to see if any of these other Justice League films that are going to be standoffs are going to be as good as this, as kind of making you fall in love with the character, you know? And too, like I said, because it's a woman, it's something new and it's a slightly different, fresher perspective, and it has that added benefit, and it gets bonus points for that. And like, I think it's awesome too that like, okay, finally there's some like female superheroes for young girls and stuff.
But
Like,
it's just a good movie.
yes,
It's like, it's not like you're stretching.
But
to
I'm
make it
saying like
something.
on an emotional level, like that was getting me sometimes. You know what I mean? That I was like happy about so many of those moments and like the things that like, you know, I'm having a daughter. Like aside from that though, but like, it's just like, and I was thinking about like my little cousins that are girls. They love Captain America. Like one of them loves Captain America. They love the Marvel universe, but there's no female, you know, there's Black Widow, but
she's just
they care about, her friends are like Iron Man and Captain America and stuff like that. Like I really want them to see this because I was like feeling good about
and
how
Wonder
that
Woman's is more badass than all of them.
yes,
So
like I was like really
yeah.
like that was making awesome, also making me feel really good about it. So I'd probably give it like probably like, you know, an 8.5 maybe. I don't know. I honestly need to see it again because I was 3 rows back also, and it was not kind of off to the side. And I was like trying to keep up with some of the action. Like I want to see some of the action pieces again to see how those were handled. They seemed great, and they were from what I saw. But I do want to see it again because it was just an odd angle and everything. But like right now, I'd probably give it an 8.5. Like it's not going to be my favorite film of the year, but it also has something special about it because it is a female superhero film.
Well, like when I was going into it, I was actually kind of excited for it, which I was kind of excited for Suicide Squad, and we saw how that turned out. But at the end of the day, like this is a really solid film. They didn't have one thing I liked in the movie is it wasn't faceless hordes of enemies that they were fighting. It was, you know, this is World War I, so it's obviously the world against Germany and those forces. So
yes,
I like the more grounded
So
enemies.
they weren't fighting faceless CGI rock
I didn't
monsters?
touch on that, but that is handled so well because there's also a balance of it feeling like real stakes, like it's war. You know what I mean? Like this is not like Captain America war where it's just a little bit of things happening.
No, this is
actually a war movie, and I love that about it. Like
And
actually, I'd probably give this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. And this is something that you were kind of speaking about. Like you watch this movie, and I'm going to compare it a little bit to Logan with X-23 because you look at both of these characters, and they could have been mishandled so bad on the big screen, but both of them are handled wonderfully. And you know, this movie could have been just god awful, and it wasn't. I mean, I'm right with you. I mean, I would probably give this like a 9 or 9.5 because this is the first time DC's got it right. The pacing was great. It was just a fun movie. I mean, you know,
the war stuff surprised me, like because it was like, okay, this is actually good. This isn't just a background thing. Like Captain America felt like it was a background thing. Like, oh, he was a soldier in World War II. This is World War One. Obviously, that war was rougher than World War II, from my understanding. You know what I mean? From like chemical warfare and all that stuff.
warfare.
Like,
and they
touched on so much of that. That was fresh. Like. It's like I didn't expect a pretty good war movie out of this too.
Yeah, and that's what you got. And it was, you know, they had gritty scenes that felt more like you were watching Fury than you were watching like I'm Captain America. Yeah. You know, it's like oh, that dude's leg's blown off. You know, like that's what you got. You didn't get a whole lot of that.
Yeah, it's PG-13.
Yeah, but it did show you some of the gritty reality of war, which is very nice. They
were shooting people with guns at like point blank range and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
so like it to me, there's so much into that works. And you know, Sean's had a lot of good points, so I'm right with him on almost all of it. So if I had to give this a rating, like I'm thinking I would go with a 9.5. It's not a perfect film, but it's a I really hope it does good because I like to see more films
I think
like
it's
this.
primed to do well at the box office.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I will
think
see
so,
it as soon as well and chime in on the next podcast. It's based on timing. I didn't have a chance to watch it yet, but so that was Wonder Woman. So now I can move into our discussion of What We Do in the Shadows, which is currently available on Amazon Prime if you haven't seen it. So I'd recommend checking it out there because we're going to be discussing full spoilers on it because
It's been out for a while.
it's been out for a while. Like I said, it's, so the basic premise for it is that it's
The Office meets vampires.
yeah, it's like there's a house with a couple of different vampires, with Jermaine Clement being one of them, and Taiki Waititi, who's directing the upcoming Thor Ragnarok film, is one of the vampires. So Jermaine Clement,
And he directed it as well,
yeah,
right?
Taiki Waititi and Jermaine Clement are listed as the co-directors, and like I said, Waititi is directing the upcoming Thor Ragnarok, which looks like a lot of fun. And you have the house with multiple vampires living there, and they're letting themselves be filming up to like a vampire ball, and that's basically all you need to know in terms of the premise of it. And,
It's like this is Spinal Tap, but vampires, because
Yeah.
it is like it just takes something
Yeah.
and it brings out so many ridiculous things about it, but also feels honest and like from a
Yeah.
place of love.
Yeah, and like what I like about it is like I've been watching The Office a lot recently, so it's very much filmed like The Office and Parks and Rec and that style like mockumentary. So it kind of got me there anyway. You know,
and it's a format that had kind of been overused.
yeah,
and
but it was fresh
because they weren't just doing like, oh, it's a workplace drama. It was
Yeah.
like vampires, so you have that add element.
But they're so lame. Like I think that's one thing I love. Like you're like you think of vampires are supposed to be like these suave individuals, and like these are the lamest guys on earth. These are some of the lamest people. Like Jeremy Clement's character, like at one point he loses his power, so he's like trying to persuade people to come to the window. He's like, you can't do it, and they fight and they're so weak and lame. Like I loved it. Like
Well, yeah. Then you have like all the added. So there's also like werewolves.
Did you watch it? Have you seen this before?
no, this is the first time I watched
okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have like the werewolves who are in it.
And they're all lame. I just love how lame
He's
everybody
like, we're
is.
werewolves, not swearwolves.
Yeah.
And then there was like
like,
announced
"You're just rude."
There was announced they're gonna have like a spinoff that was called Werewolves.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like a pun type thing. So I'm excited to see that. I know like everybody involved in this is pretty busy because like Jermaine Clement was on Legion and gave an
he was
interesting
great.
turn.
Yeah.
And like I said, Taiki Waititi's directing the Thor movie, so he's probably doing some huge movies.
And he did The Hunt for the Wilder People, which you guys need to see that.
Yes.
It's really stellar. Like that's a good film. Like I love this film. Like easily, whenever it came out, we awarded it like best horror comedy, right, or something like that.
Yeah, or something.
Something in that category that year. And absolutely, I don't know if my mind was in other places, but this time, like I laughed a lot watching that film originally. This time I didn't really laugh out loud a lot. I thought it was really funny, but like that film, if you like this one, same director, at least one of the same cast members, maybe a couple. But that film is just a really good story as well. And I think that's like a better film. But this one is just like, if you want a straight out comedy and just to laugh the entire time, like this film is great for that.
And I like the Nosferatu style vampire they had that was in the basement.
Yeah,
like
Peter.
he's
Yeah.
giving bags of chickens because he doesn't talk and he's like 3,000 years old. And I like the youngest vampire, not Nick, the one that's the younger one than him
Yeah.
that was like doing the weird Nordic dance.
Yes, yeah.
Like there's so much wackiness, weirdness in this movie.
Oh, Deacon.
Yeah, Deacon. I loved Deacon and like his. I just like when it shows them walking around town and they're so. It almost reminds you of like when we all went to the same high school, but we had kids that would almost dress the way like they dress in this.
Well, then there was
So
a funny
it's
thing
just funny,
too
just-
when they walked by like the vampires that were like the little girls.
Yeah.
And, like if you're turned to a vampire as a kid, you stay a kid forever. And they asked them something about killing some like pedophiles or something.
Yeah, and the girls just shook their head, and later on it shows them killing a pedophile. So it's just funny that it kind of played on that too, which is I
Yeah.
think almost making fun of the Interview with the Vampire because of Kristen Dunst's character. Because she
Well,
was
then there's another movie like Let the Right One In that
Yeah.
kind of touched on that, or the American version Let Me In. So you have like the vampire tropes, but like the funny stuff with like when Nick gets turned into a vampire.
Twilight.
And he just walks around all the bars like telling everybody that he's a vampire.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, well, I'm a vampire hunter.
He's like, sure you are, buddy. And then he was, and they killed him.
And then Stu, who showed all the vampires how to use modern technology.
Which is
That
really,
was like probably one of my favorite scenes watching it again. You know?
Because he showed them how to do video chat and how to...
And they're like on Google image search, like, ooh, let's see some virgins because they want to drink virgin blood.
he's like, a virgin doesn't do that. And actually, Stu is probably my favorite character because he's like, yeah, I'm Stu. Like, he doesn't ever talk, and all the vampires love him. They like him better than they like Nick, and like they just completely accept him. And it just everything was so, I don't know. I just really like the way that everything in the film worked, just paced right.
And then like when they think Stu's dead, and then he just gets turned into a werewolf.
Yeah. And they're all fine with it. So I don't know. It just
I hope that werewolf cast is the ones in the
Because
show.
Rhys Darby, who is in like the lead werewolf, was also on the X-Files season 10 and was pretty funny.
That's the one we keep telling you to watch.
Yeah,
the main werewolf with the red hair.
Yeah.
He's in that, like, the best X-Files.
Mulder and Scully meet the were-monster.
Yeah.
So like you have like
Spoiler, he plays a were-monster and it's really good.
So you have a lot of in What We Do in the Shadows, you have a great cast of a lot of people, and then you have like the very dry humor that just comes out of situations because like when they have like guest over, they was it Deacon asked the guy, like they give him spaghetti and he says it weird, he's like spaghetti or scatty or
spaghetti or it says it's something
he's
weird.
like, so then the guy Nick starts taking a bite and then he's like, do you like eating worms? And then he like pushes the plate away and they don't actually show the effect of it being worms. They just
And then he asked if his penis was a cobra
or a snake.
Snake, yeah. And he's like, is your penis a snake? And he's like, oh, you guys are weird.
Yeah.
And then every time they called him the dainty vampire.
Oh, Viago.
Yeah, Viago. Every time Viago goes to kill somebody, he bites him in the neck and blood just is everywhere.
He ends up biting their main artery.
So there's just blood. It's like a scene on Evil Dead. There's just blood everywhere.
So then you
all
see
over
like
the
somebody's
place.
blood spraying. He's just trying to get to go directly into his mouth. And then like Vladisov is like the Jermaine Clement vampire. It's more of like the Vlad the Impaler type.
But he's really lame now because he got defeated by the Beast, who's depicted as having a penis on his stomach for most of the
That's
film.
just like his ex.
Yeah, it's his ex-girlfriend.
The Beast.
Yeah.
I also love that like little moment whenever they show him Facebook or whatever, and he's like, he's like, well, you can like message or you can poke, and he's like, ooh, yes, poke.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly enough, Facebook still has the ability to poke.
And one thing that's funny is like there's like William talked about this. There's like the ball of the undead. So you have like witches, vampires, zombies, and all this stuff. And they asked Jeremy Clement if he's going to go, and he's like, because the Beast is going to be the guest of honor. He like lets himself go for like a week, so he's like super dried out and about to die. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna make it." And he's like just super bummed out about it, which I just love that because it was just funny, like how he just let himself go because he couldn't deal with the Beast.
You can tell like this wasn't one, again, they co-directed it. You can tell that this isn't like one person with a vision that was trying to wrangle all the other actors in to kind of be on the same page. It seemed like a lot of very funny, very creative people all came together and probably added so much to every scene. You know what I mean? Like I think it's like they picked the right cast, the right people to be involved because it kind of fires on like all cylinders and it's edited well because it doesn't lull, like, you know what I mean? There's no slow parts. It's just a really well constructed, like if you just want to laugh, like this is what this is.
And like when there's a part where Deacon's doing a weird Nordic dance for the other vampires, and Nick tries to fly in through the window and he can't do it. And they're like, why don't you just come in the door? And he's like, I was doing a Nordic dance and you ruined it. Like I love that and seeing because it's the weirdest dance. And
then Nick's able to get him into clubs because they have to be invited into somewhere, so they can never get into clubs.
The cold club.
So then Nick gets him into one, and then they just went to like when they were by themselves, they had to go by the vampire club. There was like 10 people.
Yeah,
there
it's
total.
really lame. And I like Deacon's servant woman because she's like apparently a very bad servant.
Oh yeah, his familiar. Yeah.
Because it touches on things that like familiar. I remember that from Blade actually, but
And the one guy dressed like Blade.
Yeah.
Which was really great too. Yeah.
He's like, you can't be dressed like Blade. And he said one year he dressed like a nun. He's like, that didn't go over too well. Vampires hate nuns.
But like it's one of those things where, like I said, the mockumentary or the doc style or found footage genre was kind of dry, and it has good stuff in that genre from time to time. And then, but like the doc style stuff, especially the mockumentary stuff, because like everybody after The Office was a success, everybody was trying to copy that.
Yeah, like Modern Family and Parks and Rec, which Parks and Rec is kind of.
I mean, a lot of those shows ended up being good on their own or having their own fans, but that style as a whole got overused as a trope. But this felt like it was fresh because it took something. It wasn't just a workplace drama; it was a supernatural thing that just showed the mundane aspects of like when Viago goes and opens the window or looks out the curtain when he wakes up at night. And he's like scared. and then
Deacon falls asleep at the computer eBaying. Like, you fell asleep and it's almost sunrise.
and then Stu shows him a sunset on YouTube or something because they hadn't seen one.
yeah.
So there's all these different funny things, and you have like there's no real scares in it. I mean, there's horror stuff and there's like gore and stuff.
But
like
it's
that.
like very goofy, you know.
then,
But
like,
it fits the film.
when the dead body's there in the basement and like the cops are there and they have to use like their ability to like
It's like he's drunk. He's
what
like,
do they call? I think on True Blood they called it glamour.
No, yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, he
I
said he
forgot
just
they called it in the
hypnotized
movie.
him. He's like, I'm not very good at it.
When they
So,
hypnotize.
yeah, so every time like the cops think they see something, that plays this really dramatic music, and then it's just like, no fire detector, or smoke detector. And it's like when they find the dead vampire hunter in the basement, like, well, what's your buddy doing down here? It's like, well, he got drunk and passed out. So he's just on the floor. You need to at least give him a blanket. And and then they find like the dead Nosferatu vampire,
Peter.
but there's so much in it that it works. You know?
Yeah. When I first watched this too, I think I told William or when we were talking about it, I was like, I wanted this to be a TV show. I'm like, it's so good. Like this could be an awesome series. And then when they said it was the werewolves, I'm like, that's fine. I trust them, but I liked the vampires so much. But actually watching this time, knowing the lead werewolf and their other friend that becomes
Stu.
a werewolf, if they're involved too.
Yeah, Reese Darby and the guy that plays Stu.
Yeah, like
I was like how
and two,
dry Stu
they
is.
can mine a lot more out of that werewolf stuff now that because they've done so much with the vampires in this film. Not saying they couldn't creatively pull a lot more out, but
I mean, they can appear too. I would assume as like cameo.
yeah, and that's what I assumed too. They could pop in and out because they are. Jermaine Clement, I'm sure, is very busy and what's his name?
Taiki
Waititi. You know, he's directing. Obviously, he's probably
Big budget
very
Marvel
busy with
movies.
Marvel. So I actually think the werewolf thing is probably the right angle on that because they could even do just some vampire episodes if they wanted to. You know what I mean? Here and there. But yeah, I really hope that comes to fruition for sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite storylines in the film too was the character that loved the woman but got shipped and took 18 months to get in there. So she got married and he let her live his life out. But at the end, she's like 96 years old and he turns into a vampire. And he's like, what do people think that when they see a 96-year-old with a 400-year-old man, they think that I'm cradle robbing? And I just thought that was kind of funny. Just how like he was just so happy that he was with her even though she was old.
And
It was
then
just a
like
nice touch.
Viago's serving, he talks to him via Skype or something.
Yeah, he's like, you're supposed to turn me to vampire. I'm so old now.
He's like, now I'm 96.
Yeah, he just hangs up on him.
So there's all the funny stuff that would act like if you think about the vampire lore and then think about the modern technology and stuff that actually would come up. And then they actually address all that stuff. So I thought, and two, it's like set in New Zealand because, you know, that's where a lot of their stuff was set anyway, like Fly the Conchords and stuff like that. So it's always just, you know, it's interesting that it wasn't, because too, like vampires, I think, had kind of run their course. Like like Blade and all the action type stuff. And Underworld still came out though, like recently.
Yeah.
I don't think it made a huge impact to the box office, but like Twilight kind of took a lot of the horror edge off of vampires for a lot of people. Because they were like a major staple in horror films for a very long time, especially during like the Hammer horror and like Dracula and all that type of stuff. And then in more recent years, they kind of been neutered by Twilight and like Vampire Diaries and stuff for kids and True Blood and stuff like that. And then this is just making like a comedic branch off of that where it doesn't really do anything to make them horror icons again. It just pokes fun at more of the traditional tropes of vampire films and literature and all the different things you're aware of. So, but two, it's one of those movies like we always talk about, or at least I talk about, like, could you show this to people and they would enjoy it who aren't huge horror fans? On this one, I think it's a resounding yes. I think you could show this to a lot of people that aren't big horror buffs and they would find a lot to enjoy.
Especially if they're the type of person that likes like The Office and Parks and Rec.
Because even if somebody's not a huge vampire nut, which none of us I really think are, like you still know enough of those tropes and the different things that all this, or somebody, especially like someone like Buffy the Vampire Slayer from like the 90s or 2000s, like people are fans of any of that type of stuff. Like they'll probably get a lot out of this movie. And especially if they liked Flight of the Conchords or other stuff that like Jermaine Clement's been in, or, I just wonder if anybody's going to go back to this after watching Thor Ragnarok and realizing the same guy directed both.
Be fun. It is funny to see that. It's great for him that he went from doing this, which just is a great film, to doing that.
Did you see the little skit they did with Thor, like around the office and stuff, like in between, like or during? I think it took place during Civil War, and it had Thor like wondering why he hadn't gotten called, and like showed him like just like in an office setting or something. Like, so you could very much see the influence of like what we do in the shadows on that kind of like mockumentary thing with Thor.
Yeah.
So this is a movie that, like I said, it's on Amazon Prime, and it's just fun. Like, I mean, there's not a whole lot to break down aside from just going through all the story stuff, because it's just comedy.
It's just little vignettes of moments. Like there's some larger stories on here, but it very much is like kind of like a hangout movie. Like you're just watching these people live their lives, and it's just funny because you're getting to know them and their lifestyle and all that stuff. But they just happen to be vampires.
Like I'm a huge dog lover, and so is Sean. But there's one scene in the movie that is really dark but funny because Stu gets killed by the vampire or the werewolves. And they go find this border collie, and they're like, "Look what you did, boy. We're gonna have to put you down for this." And it's like, no, that dog didn't do this. And it was just so funny how inept the cops were, and they're just blaming like this cute little collie for killing Stu. And it's like, well, he's got to go down. And it's like, to me, I don't know why that stuck out to me so much, but it was so ridiculous. It was actually really funny.
So again, like Hunt for the Wilder, like that's kind of like dark too. You know what I mean? Like it's dark, like stupidity. There is some like the Hunt for the Wilder People. It has to do with a foster kid that basically gets taken to this family, a lady, and then Sam Neill is kind of the guy who lives with her, and so, but there's some like really like funny but like kind of dark stuff with that because he's a foster kid, like the person that's kind of like in control of him before and stuff, like that dry humor kind of like that, is throughout that film. Like this is more of a straight comedy, but again, you guys have got to watch that because that film shows me he has really good storytelling chops. Yeah. This is very funny. It's like you couldn't see that he pulled, like he's a great storyteller on a huge level. You know what I mean? This is like a different thing, but that film is actually a really good, sweet story, and it's not like a laugh a minute, but it's also like paced really well. And if like anybody's a fan of this movie, you should definitely go watch that.
Because like with what we do in the shadows, the overall criticism I have against it is that like, so there is some storyline laid out, like they're leading up to this vampire ball thing, but there isn't, like a lot of it's more like free form stuff just happening. So there's not like a super defined plot, but the type of style of movie it is, I think that works for it.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want an actual plot.
I mean, like that's why I think like
that's what's the fun out of it.
Because it's more of just like things happen. They have like some different narrative beats they're going to hit because this thing's coming up, but then they have just all this random stuff happening.
But it kind of follows like the Seinfeld theology of like it's a movie about nothing almost, because like it's just vampires doing normal lame stuff and just entertaining, and then like the only real like plot thread is toward the end when they go to the ball. And one of my favorite things is after the film is over, they kind of do a little bit of what people are doing, and Jeremy Clement's character is like back Jermaine is back with the beast, and he's like, I know why we broke up. Like, and it shows like fighting in the hallway and stuff. It's just funny to be like they go through all that, and I don't know, to me
it's a fun movie. Is a key thing. It's fun. It's funny. You can show it to people. It's not a hard watch, because sometimes we'll watch stuff with the podcast, even movies I like,
and it's hard.
And it's like this isn't an easy watch. Like some movies, like The Exorcist, even though it's a great movie, it's not something you just sit down and watch when you're in any mood.
No.
Or if you're like, if you're not in the mood for it, if you're like doing it for an assignment like we do on these podcasts sometimes you're like, I have a lot of stuff I need to be doing. You know what I mean? Your kind of attention might be divided. But this is really easy just to throw on it and just watch for sure.
Because the movie itself is an hour and 26 minutes, so it's not long.
Yeah, it goes by really fast.
It's a fun watch. So I guess we can kind of give our review scores on this, and I'll start. Like, I think this is like a solid 8. Not not my favorite movie in the past few years, but like it's up there, and something I think is easy to watch is first and foremost, and it's easy to recommend to people that are horror fans. They'll get stuff out of it. People that are comedy fans, people that are just fans of The Office or other stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff there to get a lot of different type of people. So it's a movie that I enjoy. I'll probably go back and watch this again at some point and show this to people that haven't seen it. So I think, solid 8, like good movie. I enjoyed it. Think it's fun. Something I would recommend to people. So
Yeah, like I kind of lump this in like the same group. Like if somebody likes Shaun of the Dead, I would probably recommend it to this. Shaun of the Dead's a little more serious on some stuff, but like I really like both of these movies, but I feel like they could group in the same a little bit because they're kind of parodies. This one's obviously way more of a parody than Shaun of the Dead because it never really takes itself seriously as a vampire movie and never really has any actual serious moments. But I'm right with William. I'm going to give it 8 because I think this is a movie that if you have people that are interested in horror, but you put this on, like they could find some enjoyment out of it because there is just so much goofy stuff that happens in it.
Yeah.
And especially like when the vampires run into the werewolves, there's just so much smack talk for no reason because the werewolf guys are like really polite, But yeah, I really enjoy it. I know when me and Courtney were watching it first, she's like, "Oh, this looks stupid," and like within like 10 minutes of the film, she really liked it and ended up watching all of it because she thought it was gonna be boring, but it's like it actually is really good. It kind of, I guess, to the general person might seem like that, but you watch it, and it's like, no, it's actually really.
Yeah,
funny.
I mean, the cast just sells every moment of that film.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I probably would have given it a 9 out of 10. Again, my attention was kind of divided watching it, only because I'd watched Wonder Woman last night, then went home and watched it.
Yeah.
That new Cameron announcement came out. So I was kind of like looking up that stuff because that's like a big purchasing decision.
Yeah.
And I was kind of looking at that stuff. And I laughed at a couple moments, but I actually wasn't laughing much the second time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it lost some of its appeal after watching it or what. But like the first time, I would have given it a 9 out of 10. But now I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10 as well, at least. Maybe even an 8.5. I still thought it was really funny. It just wasn't making me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really well done film. Like I'm really glad this came along. And I think as far as horror comedies go that are actually horror comedies and funny, like this is a kind of a big highlight that will be one of the best ones in probably a few year range, a couple years before it, and I'm sure a couple years after it. Like this, it's definitely one of the better horror comedies we've had in a while.
And I'm very much looking forward to the Werewolves spinoff.
I'd
sequel.
like to watch that.
So I think that wraps up our review or discussion of what we do in the shadows.
And real quick too, we will have probably a Twin Peaks video blog up soon.
Yeah.
This comes out on Tuesday, so that's why we didn't touch on that because we have not seen the new episode. Then we have the video blog up covering the first 4 episodes on YouTube.
The only thing I think about in the Twin Peaks is that now you and William are cugs.
Yeah, somebody called us that in the comments. So
somebody called us cucks.
With no explanation, they just literally wrote the word cugs. So it's cool.
So that is a word that I find to be very funny, and I use a lot jokingly.
We've made it now that we've been attacked by the alt-right.
Yeah, you know you're doing something. Yeah, as long as you're getting praised or getting hated on, you know you're doing something.
I guess he didn't agree with our opinion of the first 4 episodes.
He's like,
cugs.
Mr. C is the badass.
So anyway, that's why we haven't touched on that, but that is like we are actually putting a big focus on that. That's why we're covering it separately, but I think we'll touch on it every week, at least just for a little bit, but that's why we didn't talk about it now because
we haven't seen it yet.
We're in this in the middle period where we've seen the first 4 episodes. We've already done the video on that, and then we're waiting for episode 2 to come out tomorrow for us. So
keep an eye out for that, and then make sure if you're listening via iTunes, do us a huge favor and go out and leave a review, or even if you're not listening via iTunes, you can do us a huge favor and leave a review in iTunes because it helps other people find the podcast and it helps us move up the charts. And that's just overall good to have more feedback out there so people know what to expect. And then also, we always enjoy seeing YouTube comments because we get a lot of great comments and feedback there. So aside from the guy on the other video called us cucks, I think it's good to get feedback. And then you can always send us an email at podcast@housebyvideostore.com where anything we get there, we always take a look at it. So we haven't got any emails in a while. So if you want to send us an email, you can do that.
If you disagree with us or agree with us or just have anything you'd like to share, just send it to us and we'll read it on the podcast.
And again, or if it's something specific you want to stress on the podcast, if it's easier to leave a comment on YouTube, that's fine as well. But just say, hey, sometimes we just respond on there. Yeah. You say, I want you to talk about this on the podcast or whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
because normally we just try to respond if it's a specific question.
We try to cover, because like a lot of times too, the stuff we cover ends up being dictated by what's available on streaming, what do we have on disc, what do we have time for,
or what new releases,
what the new releases are. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into what we end up doing. But a lot of times if we had suggestions, we have eventually got around to. But yeah, so we enjoy any feedback you can give us. You can follow all the work we're doing at housebyvegasstore.com. Find links here to all the social media accounts with Facebook and Instagram and YouTube being the most important. We're also on Twitter, so you can follow us there as well. Because we have a new short film after the slasher that I'll be finishing up this weekend, so it should be done soon. We'll submit to some festivals, see what happens, and when we figure that out, we'll have a release date for when we're going to put it on YouTube and everywhere else. But there's some other short stuff we have in the works, so make sure to keep an eye out on our social media accounts. We'll post details on anything like that there. But, yeah, I think that covers all the stuff. You can find us specifically on the internet. You can find me on Twitter at will_droid.
You can find me on most social media platforms at MetaWorldDerek.
And I'm at Sean2DT on Instagram. Twitter is at BlevinSean. I have it set to private right now due to some other situation with a job or something, like a part-time thing. But I'll probably but you can just add me and I'll approve you if you add me.
Oh, yeah, my Instagram is WACAPP85, I believe.
Yeah, Meta is with 2 T's.
Yeah, but because it wouldn't let me change my Instagram name. But, yeah, so that'll bring this episode of the House by Vasor to...
podcast.
That'll bring this episode of the House by Vasor podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.
House by the Video